And we are live once again. Now, Alejandro Tornato here, coming directly, you know where from, Beaufort, Georgia. And it is a beautiful day. It doesn't matter what happens outside, but it's always a beautiful day. But today, what happens outside matches what happens inside because it's really a very nice and warm day. So I have not seen you for a week because our last broadcast, our last episode was Monday, a week last Monday. We did not have one on Friday. And let me bring my colleague, my dear friend, Bob DiGiacomo, because guess what? This episode, as all the other episodes on Mondays and Fridays, are Alejandro and Bob unplugged. So if you're ready to be unplugged today, come join me in bringing. I have to walk to the green room. I mean, to bring this young man into, and here he is. You see, I
Oh,
mean, I just have to walk to the green room to bring you in.
oh my gosh, a green room. We are really stepping up in the world to have a green room.
Well,
Everybody has a green room. My gosh.
well, that's right. Yes, everybody. I mean, when you reach a position of notoriety in the world, when you reach a position of um, high visibility and reputation, then of course we need a green room.
Well, notoriety is probably better than being notorious. And sometimes it can be dangerous to be the invisible man.
That's
I
exactly right.
I have to tell you that we're picking up where we left off on that day where we left off because shift happened.
That's exactly right. It was last Monday when we started our broadcast, and we were gathering momentum, and all of a sudden that momentum just it disappeared. You see, it's amazing that there are so many things that we can control, but there are yet so many other things that are really outside of our control. And technology and connectivity is one of those things that no matter how much we try and how much we do things in order for nothing adverse to happen, but sometimes adverse things do happen. And so all of a sudden we were just disconnected, and Bob just suddenly disappeared. I mean, from the scene.
But from the recording that I saw that you finished off with, it looked like you were doing fine without me. It was like, oh my gosh. But I have to add to this because the more things change, the more they stay the same. But we have to deal with, what was it, adversity? Um,
Yes.
because all right, that day we were right in the middle of a "Do you remember" moment,
Yes.
and I have to add to that. Do you remember goes back a long way for me. Maybe not quite so far for you because you're a lot younger than me. But for those people living in the now, their "Do you remember" time will come soon when they will have a generation to live through and be able to go back and say, well, back in the day, do you remember? But then we were going to broadcast on Friday, and shift continued to happen because there was a flux in the force. The force was just acting up. I think it was the dark side for some reason, because had it been the light side, Luke stay on the light side of the force.
Yeah.
The internet was like a roller coaster, and then what also was happening was is that nothing for me is normal right now, because you may remember that there's this virus that people are using as an excuse around the world. And I say that with respect because I know that some people have suffered and the like. But if we compare it, contrast it to things that happened in the past, uh, it balances out. But because of that, I'm not where I should be at the moment, but I am where I should be at the moment. And I don't have control over where I am at the moment. Do you remember?
That's exactly right. And you know, there's when we talk about do you remember, and when we talk about the good old days, or what happened perhaps 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, um, that's like um, a knife with two sharp edges on it, because even though it is good to have a good remembrance of what happened back then, and it's good every now and then, I mean, just to go back and to remind ourselves of what we did or what didn't do or what happened, and experiences that we had and so forth. But then I think that the most important thing that we can do is to have that cursory look of what happened in the past, but still have all of our attention in the present moment, because the present moment is where we currently are and where we live and where all things happened. um, and sometimes is good, is healthy to go back, but not to stay back for an extended period of time. Is that what your view or ideas are as well?
Well, yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. But for some reason, our human nature is to always say it was so much better back in the day.
Yeah.
And so here I am. I live on this island of Bermuda still because I can't get off the island. And
Even though
and
you have a desire to get off the island, but for things outside of your control, you are very much stuck
Well,
there.
shift continues to happen, and I'm going to add a couple of things into that because of everything that's been going on over the last several days that are out of my control completely,
Hmm.
but yet are indirectly impacting me.
Yeah.
But I was thinking back on several things before today's call. I was thinking back to it was in the early 1970s when I was working in a gas station. And it was my job to walk up and down the long line of cars because there was a fuel shortage back in those days because of the Arab oil embargo. Don't know
Hmm.
how many people remember or know that there was an Arab oil embargo, which which emanated, if I'm not mistaken, from the takeover of the American embassy in Iran. It was so many things snowballing at the same time. But it was my job to walk up and down the line and tell people they could or could not get gas that day. Oh my gosh. Talk about having power, but being in danger. Because who would want to tell somebody? You remember that classic line in one of the Mel Brooks movies? No, the line from Seinfeld: "No soup for you, no gas for you." And
Right.
I actually had a few people try to run me over. Uh, you had to be fleet of foot back in those days. But I remember that the price of gas prior to that was, I think it was like 25 cents a gallon for high test, because there were several grades of gas. There were cars that used regular, and then there were high performance cars that used premium,
Yes.
and we called it high test. Um, and 25 or 30 cents for a gallon of gas. Now I come over here to Bermuda, and on any given day, the gas could be between $8 and $10 a gallon because it's over $2 a liter. I had to learn metrics over here. Um, and so, like $2, but milk is still more expensive than gas. Believe that or not, milk is still more expensive than gas over here. So I was thinking of that. And then there was another time I was thinking about this place called Howard Johnson's. Howard Johnson's was we used to call it an ice cream parlor because that's what it was. And they had 28 flavors, and you could go in and get a nice ice cream soda or a milkshake or a hot fudge sundae. You could even have a meal. And it was relatively inexpensive compared to today.
Mm.
In fact, my wife was reading an ad here on the island where you could get a hamburger, some fries, and a drink, $26 later. Yeah, and that's before they add the tip, because they automatically put the gratuity on the bill for you, just to make it easy.
And just to make sure that everybody gets tipped. That's right.
Oh, and some people get tipped off. I can tell you. But I wanted to add, though, with everything that's going on over these last few days, in fact I did a Facebook Live this morning about this, and we're living in the today, but we need to go back to do you remember,
Mm.
and do the balance, because everything does balance out. We think
Yeah.
we're unique because we have a pandemic going around the world right now. We had one back in 1968. We had one back in 1918.
Now, I don't know if you, because I mean, you are not a person, I mean, who gets every day hooked to the news, and I don't, but I guess it was a couple of days ago. After um, after what happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd. Um, and you know that I lived in Georgia. I live in Beaufort, which is about, I would say, 30 to 40 minutes north of Atlanta. And like a couple of days ago, or 3 days ago, last week, um, uh, all of a sudden, I mean, nothing major happens in Atlanta, but there was this, that in Atlanta, CNN has the headquarters. And there was this major demonstration of people, I mean, and so forth. And it was, I tell you, I mean,
Mhm.
we are living in very, I don't know, but we are living in dangerous times, isn't it, Bob?
Well, we've been in dangerous times before, and every time we live in dangerous times, we always say, "Oh, it must be the end of days. End of days coming." And before we got on this call, you said, and I said, "Well, the sun's going to come out tomorrow." And I started singing the song from Annie, "The sun will come out tomorrow," um, and truly, the sun will come out tomorrow. And if I'm not there to see it, I still have faith enough to know that it will still come out whether I'm here or not.
Yeah.
Um, and comparing, contrasting. Okay, you had some issues in Atlanta. Today, there's going to be demonstrations over here in Bermuda because they're sending a new. We have a U.S. consulate here, and
Okay.
they're sending a new guy over here to head up the office. And I guess there's some people in Bermuda that don't want to be left out, so they're going to have some demonstrations to get their points across. I tell you,
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, when we look now, compare, I mean, the days that we are living right now I know that this is not unique. I mean, that we have lived things in the past that were difficult, and we remember those days. But um, uh, how do you how do you think? I mean, the millennials or the younger generations that are living this tumultuous times right now. Um, what do you think that 20 years in the future? I mean, how are they going to look at what's going on right now?
Well, again, I have to go back to the do you remember phase because back in my day when I was in high school, especially around the 60, 68 period of time when
Mhm.
there was this turmoil going on with the Vietnam War and the
Yeah.
politics, and there were two types of people. There were people like me, and then there were people who I'm going to refer to more as a hippie type individual.
Okay.
And they they were into peace and love and all of that good stuff.
Like
And
more carefree. I mean, not.
yeah, flower children, I'm going to call them flower children. I'm stereotyping, of course, because not everybody was necessarily like that, but they were more freewheeling.
Mhm.
And eventually 20, 40 years later, because those people are like me, we're in our mid 60s, eventually you grow up with the times. The times change, you change, or you don't change. But most of them changed. And so I see the millennials in a similar fashion because what I see the millennials, I see them isolating themselves, compartmentalizing themselves.
Mm,
Just the opposite of what my generation did, where they were out there freewheeling and all over the place. The
mm,
millennials tend to compartmentalize themselves, almost trying to shut out what goes on around them. And then when something goes on around them, it's like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to handle this? They want smaller houses. They want to live right near the job. Um, so many different things that the millennials do, and sometimes we wonder, well, that's the standard excuse. Oh, well, they're millennials. You have to understand. So your question is, what will it be 20 and 40 years from now for them?
yeah.
I probably think that they will have experienced some change and they're going to do what we did and say, well, do you remember when?
Yeah. I think this now. Um, I guess when I talk to people, or I when you talk to people, and we're still in the minds of people. Do you think that in the minds of people we're still um, living in the pandemic? Because compare where we are now with what we were maybe a few weeks ago. I mean, on the heat of the pandemic. I mean, but I think that we moved from that position. I mean, we are no longer there, and it seems to me that in the minds of people, um, uh, they have not, for some, perhaps not all, but they have not been able to move into a different phase and say, hey, um, we are much further than what we were a few weeks ago. But it seems that people got stuck in like 7 or 8 weeks ago, and they haven't been able, I mean, to make that transition. I mean, why is that happening?
I'm beginning to think that some people get into a self pandemic. They create their own pandemic.
I think so.
The rest of us are out here doing what we're doing, but they put themselves in on a given day. It could be a different pandemic that they're living in. I was just thinking as you were speaking about, do you remember? Well, back in the 50s and probably just until about the late 60s, when you went into a gas station, You had people come out and say, "May I help you?" And you would tell them, "Fill it up," or "I want $20," or whatever it is. And that's how we would speak in New York: $20, not $20, $20. Or for some people who are the younger generation, well, give me $3 because that's what they had. But
That's right.
$3. Remember, at 30 cents a gallon, that was enough to go cruising. But people would come out and service you, and they would do something called your windows,
That's right.
and then they would lift up the hood. Although for those Europeans, they would call it a bonnet. But they would lift up the hood and they would check the oil and they would check the water and they would check the battery and they would check. It's like called full service.
That's right.
Now you drive up to a gas station, they're sitting behind bulletproof glass. They got this sliding drawer that comes out. It's like, "Yeah, Mac, what do you want today?" "Oh, sorry." It's like, fill it up yourself.
Well, I mean, yeah, because it's all self-serve, I mean, it's I mean, I guess yes, it's now do you think that when we moved from that full service to where we are right now, do you think your opinion is that a sign of progress, or is that a sign of something else? Perhaps a sign of sluggishness in customer service.
It's a sign of progress to some degree, but it's a major indication of retrograde because like you, we have servants' hearts. It's how may I serve you today, as opposed to WIIFM. What's in it for me?
That's right.
I'm cleaning your because I used to do this. I used to bus tables. I used to wait tables. I used to clean the dishes in the restaurant, whatever was required. And then I got a job in a gas station, and it was my job to serve others without the indication that there would be a tip coming in my direction. You
Mm,
were expected, no matter what, rain, snow, sleet, whatever, almost like the post office, to go out and put gas in somebody's car and give them full service. And so it's that attitude. You may remember this. Do you remember? It's that attitude of going into places of business today
yeah.
where they don't necessarily have the heart of the owner's uh, concern in their heart. I
Yeah.
I you know, for me to do my job, I had to serve others.
That's right.
Some people show up to show up, and they count down to when it's payday. I'm sorry to be so rough here, but here's on the island sometimes, and exceptions to the rule. But if you don't say good morning to or good afternoon to the person who's waiting on you before they say it to you, that can impact the service you get from them.
Is that right?
Yes. And further to that, the use of the chair has become very, very important for cashiers. When I was a cashier, you didn't sit down when a customer showed up, and you will ask them. You would not say to them, "Is that all?" You would say to them, "Have you found everything you were looking for? Is there anything else I can help you with?" As opposed to, "Is that all?" And I've commented a few times. You may remember this.
Mm.
I've commented to them a few times when they say, "Is that all?" And I say, I'm sorry, I didn't spend enough money in here today."
I remember when there was a time when I worked for the Home Depot, and I was one of the cashiers. I mean, well, I mean, you could be there for hours. I mean, during a shift, and there was no chair. I mean, you were standing there and you were scanning. And I remember being a cashier. You know, Home Depot has the part inside of the store, but then they have an outside where they have all the plants and all the
Hmm.
trees and all the bags of earth or whatever. I mean, all the dirty kind of things.
All the bags of shift.
That's exactly right. Yes, and and so people used to bring, I mean, the carts full of that thing, and it was dirty, was wet, and you had to go and just you were a cashier, but after a few of those customers, I mean, you were drenched. I mean, because it was hot in the summer, it was dirty. Your hands were all filthy and so forth. And but I remember those times. I mean, that it was always serving other people. It was with the attitude, as you said, of have you found everything? I mean, is there anything that I can help you with? And everything with a smile. I mean, with an attitude of serving another individual. I mean, and that was. I think that we are moving a little bit away from that. We are moving from serving others as opposed to how can others serve me the most? You see?
Well, as we begin to close this broadcast down for today, I want to put out a call to action, and I'm going to encourage those people when they watch this, because they may not see this today, but this will be up there in the domain of YouTube, etc.
Sure.
And when they see this, to make it a point and an effort, if they haven't already done so on that very day, to seek out and see who they can help and serve that day. How may I serve you today? Because what goes round will come round, and so I'm encouraging, but going out and helping and seeking how they can serve others, then you'll be able to say one day in the future, when you're speaking to those millennials or whoever, do you remember when?
That's right. Yes. Do you remember? I mean, that time, those days, and um, in some way, it's not that those days were better or worse.
Exactly.
I think that we are all evolving and transforming. Um, but even those, even if those days perhaps were not better or worse, but they were uh, experiences, and they were perhaps experiences that are worth looking into and then going back and finding the very best that we can bring into the present and take with us into the future, so we can experience the same good things that happened back then.
Because it becomes a positive pandemic, because it infects everybody to duplicate the good.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's good things. Good things are contagious as well.
Exactly.
Not only viruses are contagious, but good things are contagious. So a good word at the right time, that's contagious. I mean, laughing is contagious. A positive mental attitude is contagious. Enthusiasm is contagious. Passion is contagious. Love to live every day is contagious. So when you can infect people with those good and positive attitudes and virtues and qualities, then can you imagine? I mean, what a good trend we are beginning and we are continuing.
Oh, you want us to be trendsetters.
That's right. I mean, trend setters. I mean, that's a good word, isn't it? I mean, it has that good sound. Trend set. And there's another word that is, if I remember, um, trendsetters. Someone that leaves. Oh my goodness. Um, I
Oh, well, while you're thinking on that, maybe we should stop being Alejandro and Bob Unplugged and become Alejandro and Bob the trendsetters.
Oh my goodness! I mean, that yes, that could be. You see, I mean, that's living. This is good because every time that we do this, I mean, we are, in a sense, we are leaving um, a legacy behind.
Yep.
We are leaving something behind because you never know who is going or who might watch this or who may be watching us. Um, and
But we don't do it because we want people to watch us, but whoever's watching us, we want them to see what we're doing.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yes, and but I mean, it's great. I think that every time that we do this, I mean, we are breaking the glass ceiling, isn't it?
Mhm.
We are smashing it, and we are going even higher, and that's our purpose. So thank you. It's great. Now we don't know what we are going to be discussing this coming Friday, but stay tuned. Um, Come and join us live on Friday because there will be another topic that I'm sure that is going to resonate with all of you, and
Absolutely.
it will inspire you to live life to a higher degree and to a higher vibration. So thank you very much. Thank you, Bob, for your time and your insights. It's great to connect with you once again. And as I always end, by encouraging you to live every moment, live it to the fullest. Be kind, be passionate, be intentional, and be well. So, up until the next time that we meet again, it's great to be with you. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye bye.